Well, hello everyone, welcome to Gelvin Valley Farming Simulator 15. We've been here many times. I'm just going to go around and get up on all my equipment here. And the task I have ahead of me for this time is really to roll our new field number 18. Past couple episodes we've ripped it up. It was kind of a grazed grass field, if you will. And this roller is kind of specially made. I know I've talked about it before. I think I've used it in here where it will eliminate some of the smaller rocks. It'll just make them disappear, presumably pressing them into the soil. But something I haven't shown before, or I don't remember, maybe it's been in a separate video, and I just wanted to show it here. I've continued to tinker with the mod off and on, and here's maybe a good candidate to try it on. You know, when I was on the farm, we had all sorts of rocks, and I've maybe told stories about this before. You know, a lot of them were small, we picked up by hand. A lot of them were very thick, and we had special machines to pick them up. But some of it was just hot, wearying work where you had a tractor out there, maybe front end loader, and you always, when it was your turn, you were lucky to drive the tractor because you didn't have to walk and pick up the rocks. But everybody else did, and you throw them into the bucket of the tractor, whatever. But some of the rocks we had were large enough that dynamite was used to dispense with them. And dispense, I think the goal was maybe to break it up into smaller hunks, to break it up period, so you were able even to get at the rock, because some of them, usually it wouldn't be a standalone rock like the one ahead of us. It would be one kind of embedded into the hill, if you will. And the dynamite would help jar it loose, but sometimes I think the goal was also just to try to pulverize the rock and powderize it, if you will, so you didn't have to pick the silly things up, and you could just reincorporate it kind of into the soil. But anyway, I've off and on worked on a dynamite mod, and so I don't know, just for kicks, thought I would show it to you here, maybe before getting going on this episode. So I think I had it as a placeable. You know, we didn't have as many options in Farm Sim 15 for this kind of thing. So you'll maybe see some, you know, look at that character there. I don't know what that is. I think it's a placeable man or something. He looks like a real case. Anyway, here's dynamite. Now, I think I was standing by this rock here. For some reason, there's a light. I'm not sure why. It's probably one I have built into the mod. I'm just going to put it right there. It's kind of a green outline, if you will. This will also take out trees, I believe. And, oh, it's saying can't be placed. I already got one there. Let me just escape out. So here it is. I think this green area is kind of to represent the area where trees can be cut down with it. If I took it over here next to a tree, which I guess I can do in a moment, it will essentially cut the tree down, which kind of simulates blowing it out, if you will. I think you have to do another one to take the stump out. I don't recall exactly, but I can at least show you what it does to the rock here. So get the help menu out. I think when you get close enough, and I'll have to be real quiet. Oh, I got that lousy sheep over here. That's kind of a mod. Where is that thing? Trusty sheep. Well, hopefully he won't baa while I do this. If you hit, yeah, I see baas right at the end. If you hit R, you'll light the fuse. So let's see if we can hear it. Okay, well, it really didn't do anything to the rock. And that's something I still need to tinker with. You know, dynamite can be expanded or pared back as needed. And what I mean by that is you can add additional sticks of dynamite if you wanted. You know, sometimes on a massive rock, you know, we would put several sticks in it to help it blow up and break up. But as we saw on that one down there, it must be heavy enough that the dynamite just doesn't move it. Now, in a game like this, in the coding for the dynamite, you would tell it, let me see, I think this one right here. You would tell it how much of an impulse to give to it. In other words, how hard to move a particular weight. And if it's a larger object, like that large rock or even a tractor, a single stick of dynamite just isn't going to do all that much. And I don't know that in a game environment here that you could just add more than one stick. Something I need to figure out is maybe key this off of how much mass there is in the particular object or objects surrounding the dynamite to see what needs to how much it should move. So let me try this one. It's a smaller rock. It should blow higher. There it is as it comes down. Okay, that one was a much smaller rock and it blew it straight up. And in real life, it'd probably blow it up and out. And I don't know how realistic I want to make this. And also in real life, it'd probably leave a little crater, where the rock was, or a big one, depending on how much punch. And you know what? I'm not going to put this in my save game. So let me see if I can take out a tree, just to show kind of how that works. That one's on the other side of the fence, but you know what? We might be able to take it out here. Let me just give it a try. Come down. Ooh, one thing it won't take out is like this big structure here. Which one is it? This one right here? I don't know if that's close enough. Let me come up here. I can see better what I'm doing. Maybe that's close enough. Now I've got to figure out which tree I put. Okay, over by this tree. Let me see if I can get... So ideally, if it's within the green area, it should be able to knock the tree down. And I kind of think it's reaching over by that tree. So you know what? Let's give it a try. I'll make sure... Okay, we can light the fuse. Let's give it a try. All right. Oh, when the tree fell on us, we're dead. So that's an instance where it cut it off. There should still be a stump somewhere in there. Yeah, it's probably down in there. We could blow out further. Another thing you'll see is, how we're in the texture where we've plowed? Well, I had the plow texture come underneath, kind of where the dynamite damage area hits. Just to show at least some disturbance of the soil. We didn't have the option back here in the FS15 days to dig holes in the, what do you call it, the mesh that is the map surface. I think in later versions, maybe in 19, where they started letting you terraform the map in game, you could finally start, seeing some mods where you could dig holes, legitimate holes. And I think that that's now possible in 22. So really, we could bring the dynamite mod into 22 maybe at some point, and it could, do some interesting stuff. And it wouldn't have to have kind of some of this fake stuff put in. You wouldn't have to use your imagination as hard. Now, on another map, which I'll share at some point, this rock here, it's what's called a dynamic object. I don't think I have the push mod in here. I know in later versions you could pick up objects, move them around. I do have the push mod somewhere where you can maybe move it a little bit by hand. But in terms of, you could, in later versions, literally pick this up, toss it, throw it, if you were strong enough or whatever. But we don't have that ability in 15. But what I did on this other map is I created some embedded rocks, if you will. So in other words, this rock, instead of sitting on the surface of the map, would be embedded into the soil. So you could come up here, you drive over with a tractor, but you couldn't budge it or move it. And I do have a cat, a D11 cat, well, I don't know what it is. It's a massive cat. And I put a script on it where you can push on the rocks and you can eventually get them to come out of the soil. But then I figured, you know what, it'd also be fun if we could blow them out of the soil so you could put dynamite on it. I'm sorry I can't show it here. You know, it's only on this other map where I have it working. So you can put the stick of dynamite there. It will blow this massive rock out of the ground. There are some much larger rocks. You know, this one's larger, relatively speaking, than some of these others. It's the largest of the rocks that I think could be pulled out of the soil. But there are some big, big rocks, a game that the giants made that are, you know, several times the size of this. You know, they're just massive. So large that it would defy imagination that you would actually pull something like that out of the soil. So, but, I mean, I do have the ad on some of these other maps, some embedded, some not. And one duty of the player is to deal with it. And one of the things a player can do is take a stick of dynamite and take a big rock and blow it into smaller rocks. And really, putting dynamite where we did, kind of just in the few examples shown, would have pulverized to some extent, you know, these rocks here. But what can I say? There's only so much you can show in game, you know, with some of the limitations, both of the game engine itself and of people like me that are trying to make a silly little mod or whatever. So, I mean, that's been kind of fun to mess with. And, you know, something else I've mentioned and talked about in here the past several episodes that I'm just going to show you here now if I can. And I'm not gonna keep this save, but I want to show you the fire. You know, I've already cut down a tree in a weird place and done some screwball stuff, but I want to show you this fire I've been working on and see what you guys think of it. So I've mentioned it's a placeable and have it down here. Here's the fires. The only one that works kind of how I've described, you know, that these would work is this one right here. There is smaller versions of the fire. This is a big one, but this is the only one that has the script attached. And like I say, right now, this fire is set up to spread relatively quickly. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to put it out here in the forest. And, all right, there it is. We have our fire. We're just going to get out. You can see it kind of in the brush over there. And I'm going to, let me just get, I'm going to get it so I can fly a little bit. And I gotta say, it kind of freaks me out watching this. And it's a fake fire, right? I mean, everybody knows it is. Smoke should continue on up. You know, there's limitations. What can I say? But it is kind of unnerving to me to watch it spread. And like I say, right now it's spreading quickly, you know, for purposes of testing. And this map here doesn't have the Chopstraw mod installed, I don't think. So it doesn't have the blackened earth effect, you know, that I've described in previous videos. But it will destroy the grass and stuff on the ground. And it's going to take out trees. And maybe I should just rise up here a little bit further. And it will do real damage to the map. Actually, there's some notes coming into the log as things print by the script to tell me when they're planting new trees. Oh, actually, hold on a sec. I guess I have the ability to do this. I was going to turn off. There we go. Just to kind of take a look at this, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, how quickly it should spread, which is entirely random, as you can see. It's just plunking it here and there, but it's going to respect the dirt edge here, and it won't go into the field, of course, and it won't destroy everything. You know, it'll take out the grass, it'll take out the trees, and I'll show you some of that effect. But how fast should it spread, because the player needs to have the ability to come in here and deal with it. And I gotta say, if it got going in this forest here, the player's gonna have a difficult time addressing it, because this isn't even really, I'm not even sure this is a drivable area now that I think of it. Yeah, we're way up here, kind of by Gelvin Bio Oil. It's kind of just a tree area, and this looks like maybe a walking path. Maybe you could drive something up that. I don't know. But actually, I'm still not high. This is such an elevation difference. Maybe it connects up with a path over here. You know, I guess there is kind of a route to the forest as I look at it there. So maybe someone could get a tractor up in here or a fire engine to deal with it. You know, one of the things I've mentioned you can do to put the fire out is use a plow or a cultivator. Well, you're not going to get any of that up here. You know, it just isn't going to fly coming in here trying to do that in amongst all these trees. But anyway, this is kind of how it works, and I think, like I've mentioned, it's pretty resource intensive. You know, most of the time in here we've had a 60 FPS, and look at that, it's 15 to 18. That's slowly going back up. Maybe depends on what direction you look. It's pretty intensive. So the other thing is, each one of these is an individual placeable. So a part of me says, well, how long should the fire burn? Maybe I haven't even mentioned that. Eventually, the fire will burn itself out, and the placeable will be deleted, removed, or whatever. Now, if we were to save the game as is kind of right now, the next time we loaded it up, all these fires would be there, and every single one of them would start up just like you see them right here, and would continue to do damage. You know, and in real life, I mean, can you think of a worse place to have a fire than right by a biofuel center? I mean, this place would be in very much danger. But given some of the limitations of the game and my limitations in ability to program or whatever, this biofuel facility is perfectly safe and will remain unharmed. The fire may spread. There's kind of some grass back here. Oop, I'm getting the smoke. In the smoke. Yeah, so it may burn the grass. It would come around the back, but it will leave the facility untouched. Now, if there happens to be grass, you know, if the mapper puts some under the building, well, then the fire may spread into the building and it will look like it's burning, but it really won't do any damage to it. Yeah, you see kind of over there, it's getting a little onto the concrete, but I don't think it'll go any further. Although, watch it make a liar out of me. For all I know, we'll see it spread further, but I don't think it will. But, oh, yeah, look at it, is kind of going on there. I think it's grabbing it because there's just a little bit of grass, maybe on a corner of it somewhere where it can build fire. Oh, now here, if we go over here, we can start to see in the middle where the fire is going out. And you can see the damage, you know, that it did to the trees. And again, so much of this is random, it's haphazard. But the trees now are blackened stumps, if you will. Not really stumps, they're still branches. I won't prove it to you now, but you can cut these down, you can harvest them, you can do everything that you would do with them just like with a tree, but it's not going to be worth as much to the player, you know, as it would be being a normal tree. So let me come see over the edge. I wish we could see the blackened soil underneath. It kind of looks a little hokey looking green, but I wanted it to at least work on a regular map. So if it doesn't detect the presence of the chop straw mod, well, then it just does kind of like you see here. So the only means we really have of putting it out kind of at the moment, because I haven't done any prep for this, is to start some rain. And I don't know, I might be too late in the day to do it. Let me just see if I can. It may let me. Nope, it's not gonna. So I'll tell you what. Let me just fast forward. We'll get to tomorrow. And again, I'm not gonna save any of this. Fire just continued. Continued regardless. Doesn't pay us no mind. So I'll just try this again. GS start rain. Oops, not rain, rain. All right, now we see the rain icon coming, so we'll get a downpour here shortly. And one of the things that happens, which is kind of a nice touch, and this was already embedded in this mod, is you have the ability to change the color of the smoke. Actually, let me speed it up so the rain comes quicker. You can walk up to it and say, I want white smoke. I don't know if gray is an option. But one of the things I did with it is I said, hey, if rain is falling, just like in real life, see what happened to the color of the smoke? Usually when you throw water on fire, it can change the color of the smoke, and maybe some of it is steam, coming out, the heat and the water and everything. But I made it turn it all to a whitish color, if you will, while it's raining. And it'll take a minute or two here. I'm not sure how long it'll take to put all this out. But yeah, you can see the limitations of it, but just with this little bit that I've shown you, I'd be really curious in the comments if anyone's willing to share what you think about this idea. And if you have an opinion on how quickly a fire should spread, you could kind of see it if you watched every few seconds, I believe. I don't know if it's 10 seconds. It would create a new fire. There we go. So basically, the fire has totally gone out now. And yeah, let me get over here now. And all we have left is the aftermath. And once again, we can't see anything on the ground that indicates a fire came here, but we sure can tell that a fire came through here based on what happened to all the trees. Maybe if I was really adventurous, I would figure out a way how to impact those bushes down there, but really that's extremely hard to define, at least for me. Depending on what map is used, not every map has bushes like that in it. So to be able to search for and detect that kind of foliage might be no small feat. So anyway, tell me what you think. That's kind of just a small snapshot. And we didn't put a tractor in here or other objects for it to destroy, but this is hopefully just a small demonstration of kind of what it does. And like I say, I really think for the sake of the player, I want to slow down the spread so that they have a hope of actually putting it out and dealing with it. Because if you can't, then all you've done is you've ruined your map and wrecked the ambiance that you have. I mean, personally, I wouldn't just start a fire on purpose. I like having this hillside full of trees, and there's a reason I'm not going to save this. I'm going to get out before I continue, doing real work here in the map. But let me know what you think. And one reason I just did that here on this map has to do with, and maybe I'll try to make a link to it below. I think I've maybe have linked to it previously. My friend Atomic67, who's passed away now, the most episodes of Farming Simulator that he ever did on a single map was Gelvin Valley. And I think it struck a chord with him as well as me. Why? I don't know. Both of us, it's kind of right around the time that we met was with respect to this map when the map author, Wild Wild Wes, was building it. He was working kind of off of FSUK back in the day. And so he had a thread on there describing what he was doing. And that's where I met Atomic 67, although back then he went by the name Eustace Farmer. And I know a lot of people still know him as Eustace Farmer, or EP as they call him. And so that's how we got acquainted, and it was over this, and it just, I think it really struck a chord with him as well, that he really, really enjoyed this app, and so did I. And hey, what can I say? Great minds think alike. But one of the episodes that he had, and this is what I was getting to, and what I'll try to remember to link here, is he had a fire episode. And at the time, I mean, I didn't have the skills to be able to do what I just showed everybody here in this one here. I would love to go back in time if I could and share this with him and see what he would do with it, kind of in a storytelling context, if you will. Because and this would have taken a ton of time. You know, I only placed one little fire out here in the brush, and it took off and it did the rest. He had fires all over the trees too, but he would have had to place every single one of them individually, which would have taken a lot of work in its own right. It would have been hard to see. And then he had a story to go with it, how living in Gelvin Valley, I believe he was working as a volunteer fireman, maybe that was part of being part of the fire brigade, was part of being part of Gelvin Valley, something like that. And I think he also found a mod. It might have been a sprayer type mod that was was it a helicopter? I kind of think it was a helicopter. And so he flew it around, and you could see him spraying water, presumably, over the fires. But of course, in with the limitations of the mod at that time, you couldn't see the fires being put out. I think with some creative editing that he did in the video, that's how he dealt with some of that. And some of it's like he had a major cut, and then you would come back and you would see the carnage or whatever. And he might have even introduced a picture of a burnt forest, and I guess you pretended it was Gelvin Valley. But here before us, we do indeed have a burnt forest. And before he passed, I'd have to go look at some of my chat logs with him. I think I told him some of the things I was working on with this mod. So he at least knew what was coming with it. But like I say, I mean, there's times, when you wish you could go back in time and share something like this just to see what he would do with it, and probably turn it into a bang-up story that would be just awesome. But of course, we're not able to do that. So anyway, I've yammered on enough about this. I probably should get out of the game and load up the new save game, so I'll be back in just a moment. All right. We're back to Gelvin Valley. Everything is undone. We now have a full treed hillside up there. We got rid of the damage that we had done. So my task at the moment is to start rolling this field. Get my tractor going. Have some damage to deal with. And we'll get this... Oops, my brake is still on. We'll get going on this. Start rolling this very steep field, actually. When we were out there walking on it earlier, it's hard to believe just how steep some of these fields truly are in here. And you wonder if that's the reason they're there. Hear that ding? There went one of our rocks. I really like this mod of being able to get rid of some of those little ones so we don't have to come through here and pick them up. But as soon as we get done rolling, we're going to, of course, have to come in here with tractor and trailer and load them all up. Presumably by hand, but of course we'll have a... Oh, now, wait a minute. Is that a gold one? Oh, false alarm. Oh, blimey. Could have been. The gold one actually will glow in the dark. Now, let me see. Will it roll this thing? Ah, okay, so that one was small enough that it would take it out. And this is just one whale of a steep hill, so the tractor's protesting a little bit, taking this up the hill, but we'll get the job done by hook or by crook. And early in the video, I talked a little about the old days dealing with rocks, and I think I've mentioned this before. They don't, to my knowledge, I don't think they use dynamite anymore. It's been a long time since they have. and some of it I think was just for efficiency. Well, one, I mean, I think they've dealt with a lot of the rock problems. If you keep working on a field, there's another one I took out. If you work on a field long enough, it eventually will stop belching out lots of rocks. It may not quit altogether, but you may not have the problem that you had for many years. And that isn't always true. I mean, believe me, there are fields out there that seem to give birth to rocks every single year. Or every time you till them up or deep rip them, there's always more in store. But a lot of fields, you work them long enough, you get them cleaned up, and you don't have as many issues. There went another one. Oops. That was part of it. The other part is dynamite it's dangerous. It can be messy to deal with, and it can have unintended consequences. And of course, you need special licensure in order to use it. And there's probably a bunch of tests. And knowing my uncles, they probably didn't want to have to go through all that hoopla just to blow up some rocks, as fun or useful as that might be. But there are also other ways of dealing with rocks. I know in the old days they didn't have an excavator. I think they have an excavator on the farm now. Speaking of Lone Oak. And sometimes, rather than blowing a rock up, it might be just as efficient to dig it out. And maybe instead of blowing it up or taking it out of the field, maybe you find a place where you can just bury it. And so, alright, get rid of that rock. Yoo-hoo! There we go. Sometimes you gotta lift it a little bit to get it under the wheels. But then another effect, which again I'm sure I've mentioned before, is as the farm has grown and over time, so has the size of machinery and rollers, and you get enough steel on top of a rock and you can push any size rock into the soil. Like I say, if you get enough steel. And that's kind of what this particular mod is trying to simulate. It's say, hey, all these little rocks, we're just pounding them back into the earth. And that, a lot of times, which you can do by machine, is way more efficient than picking them all up. Alright, so you dig them up, just punch them back down into the dirt so they're out of the way and you don't have to deal with them. So I think that's a lot of what happens now. As the size of machinery has grown, they just deal with them that way, to where there really isn't a need for explosives. But I gotta say, maybe it's just being a guy, those years were a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun to blow stuff up. Just saying. And I imagine there's probably a lot of men listening to me that would agree. In spite of the dangers, there's something in the male psyche that likes doing stuff like that. Just the way God made us. Anyway, I'm almost done here with the first round, and this is the only real work that we've done in here. There we go. Maybe back it up, get set for another round, and I am going to start saving this activity. But as I look at the clock, I think we've used up half an hour at least. So I'm just going to let it go there. Thank you very much for coming along tonight and giving this a listen. And I will see you on the next one. Goodbye for now.